welcome to Memory Maps. Today we are going to be making an outline of North America. So the tools you're going to need today are a blank piece of paper, a ruler, and a pencil. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fold our paper in half. We're going to measure from edge to edge, and we're going to crease it. Open it back up, and then you're going to make a tick mark at the top and at the bottom. And a tick mark is simply just a little mark that helps you to measure up your ruler. Now we're going to draw a straight line after we've measured up. Now I want to remind you about proper ruler placement. You want to make sure that you can always see. This is your writing hand, this is your ruler hand. Now if you're left-handed, obviously, then this is your ruler hand and this is your writing hand. Now I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be using my right hand, but I want the lefties to know that you always want to be making sure that you can see what you are writing. So if you are measuring up your ruler and you're having to go like this, then you need to turn your paper. You want to make sure that you're always able to see what you're doing. So always try to keep your ruler side, your ruler hand with your ruler hand and your writing hand with your writing hand, and then that way you can always see what you're doing. Okay, so I'm going to measure this up. Now I'm going to measure up the tick marks and I'm going to just draw a straight line. Now also another point about your ruler is you want to have your middle finger and your thumb finger as your bracing points. You want to make sure that your fingers aren't hanging off the edge because then you get bumpy lines. So you want to try to keep your fingers in the center of your ruler and as wide as possible so that you can brace it. It sounds simple, but it is something that we want to keep an eye on so that we can create straight lines. Using a ruler is still a skill. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do, we've now made our first longitude line. So go ahead and mark that. It is 90 degrees west. I just wrote on my table. 90 degrees west. That is our longitude line, meaning it's going down the paper, and you can think of your mouth going longitude. Your chin goes down and you make a long face. The next thing we're going to make is a latitude line. And when you say latitude, your lips go sideways, and it is going to be our horizontal lines. Now this one's going to take a little bit of practice. But what we're going to do is we're going to fold up into thirds. Imagine you're writing a special letter to somebody and you want to fold it up really pretty. So I try to keep so that I'm folding up and I'm measuring from edge to edge. This is a little tricky and it can take practice, and you want to get as close as possible so that your lines are the same width apart. Now if you want to measure it because you are a precise person, I will give you the measurements in just a minute. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look down and I'm going to measure, if you want to say be precise, about 2.5 inches down. So if you want to make your lines measurement, you can totally do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make another tick mark at my folds just so I can measure up. Okay, so now I've just made little tick marks, and now I'm going to notice that I turn my paper. If I can't get my paper to, if I can't see my hands writing, then I'm going to turn my paper. So I'm always turning my paper in case I need to. Okay, so now I've made a line going across. That is my first latitude line. My second latitude line, I'm now measuring it up, and I know the lighting here is a little bit tricky. So when I turn the paper, now you can see that I have a longitude line, and now I have a latitude line going across two of them. Now I'm going to label this first latitude line the Arctic circle. Capitalize the A and the C, Arctic. Make sure you have a C in there, Arctic. So the capital A and the capital C. And then I'm going to put the Tropic of Cancer. There we go. Okay, so now I have two latitude lines, and if we were to take this map and go up to our giant map, we would be able to zoom right into this particular portion. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to start with Alaska. So Alaska is this little square over here. So I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch or so, or 1/2 inch or so from the side of my paper, and I'm going to just make a little square. So above, 2 dots above the Arctic Circle and 2 dots below the Arctic Circle. Okay, now I'm going to leave those dots there. I'm not quite going to draw lines yet, so I'm just going to let those guys sit there for a second. Now I'm going to go across with the Arctic Circle, and I'm going to go all the way crossing over the 90 degrees west, and I am going to make 2 more dots, kind of like a smiley face. So I'm going to go 1/3 of the way over on the Arctic Circle, and then I'm going to go also 1/3 of the way, 2/3 of the way up. So 1/3 of the way over and 2/3 of the way up. Think battleship. We're putting our first, trying to sink our first battleship. So I'm going to put a dot here. Now notice I said 2/3. So if I were to cut this section into thirds, so 1, 2, 3, this would be my first third. And then I'm going to go to my second third and go over. Now if you're not like a fractions expert, that's totally okay. I'm saying I like to use thirds and halves just because it's easier to explain how to break up your paper. So if this is my halfway point, then I'm going to go, so this is 1/2 and that's another half. If I wanted to break this section up into thirds, I would go 1, 2, 3. So this is actually a little bit bigger than a third, but it's okay. Okay, so now I've made the top of Greenland. Now Greenland looks bigger on a map for various different reasons, but mainly because the map is broken up into latitude and longitude lines, and the way the progression of the degrees go, it is we're measuring out a sphere. So when you flatten it out, it looks bigger than it actually is. Greenland isn't this much bigger than other places, but it looks like it because of where it's placed. Now I'm going to leave those there. Now I've made the top half. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to now make my next dot. My next dot, I'm going to go to 90 degrees west, and I'm going to go down to the Tropic of Cancer, and where they intersect, where they cross, I'm going to go ahead and put another dot. So it's right in the middle of these two, the Tropic of Cancer and 90 degrees west. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is finally take out my handy dandy ruler, and I'm going to measure up the line, the dot that I put for Greenland and the dot that I just made. And I'm going to draw a line down through, and now I'm going to go down almost about 2/3 of the way, same distance down here, and I'm going to stop. So I'm going to show you what I just did. I went down on that line, and I went about almost 2 inches right here. Now this is going to be Mexico, the bottom of Mexico. Okay, so we've made our first line. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect our Alaska and our Mexico. So we're going to do the bottom corner of that square that you made to the dot you made down at the bottom of Mexico. There we go. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to close up this box. So we're going to take our ruler and we're going to go all the way around. Now you may notice that Alaska doesn't actually look like a box, but these maps are not meant to be the most accurate. They're supposed to give you an idea of the general geography of these continents and the countries within them. So they might not look exactly, they don't have all the squigglies and all the swoops, but you get an idea that Alaska's on the edge. Okay, and I made Alaska a little bit smaller in here. You can make it a little bit bigger if you want to widen it up and make it about, I usually tell the students about 1 inch around. Okay, now we've made our whole outside. We're going to go ahead and fill this in. Okay, let's go ahead and finish Greenland. So I'm going to put a dot about a pencil width. So when I say a pencil width, I mean if you were to put your pencil right here, on the other side of it. And I'm going to close up Greenland. So I'm going to close up that triangle. And now we've got Greenland. Okay. Now, obviously, Greenland, if you look at a map, is actually floating in the ocean. And is not totally, it's not totally connected all the way around. But that's okay. Again, we're making a general outline. Okay, then we are going to close up our Alaska here, and I'm just going to put US here. If you want to put Alaska, you can do that, but I'm just going to put US because we're doing countries. We're not doing specific states here. Now we have to break this big land mass here up into 3 parts. The first one we're going to do is we're going to make Canada. So between the dot, the intersection between the Tropic of Cancer and 90 degrees west, and the dot you made for the bottom of Greenland, go ahead and go down just a smidge, probably even just if you were to take your ruler and go the other side, you could do that, but about an inch down. And then you are going to go on the other side, just below the corner here, and you're just going to go about a half a ruler size, and we're going to connect those, and that's going to be close up Canada. Okay, so then we're going to write Canada. Oh, Canada. Make sure you capitalize. We always say capitalize every word except for the word of. So all of your proper nouns need to have a capital letter. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to close up the United States and Mexico. So what I want you to do is I want you to go to this dot over here at the bottom of Canada, and I want you to go in between the Tropic of Cancer and this dot, and I want you to put another dot. And I'm going to go a little bit lower than halfway, and I'm going to connect that dot with this intersection right here. And there you go. The United States, we're going to put United States. And then I'm going to put Mexico. There you go. Now this would not be complete unless we did oceans and a compass rose. So we're going to put a little compass rose down here so we know where north and south and west and east are. So my students like to say, never eat soggy worms. Did you think I was going to say waffles? Waffles are always soggy because you put syrup on them. So my students said, you don't want to eat soggy worms. I don't think I would want to eat dry worms either, but that's what they say. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to label our oceans. So go ahead and put on the eastern side of North America, we have the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic Ocean. On the western side of North America, we have the Pacific Ocean. Ocean. And then above Canada, we have the Arctic Ocean. Make sure you got that little C in there. It's sneaky. Arctic. Okay, and then the last thing I want you to do, because we didn't label it as our latitude line, there is a latitude line at the very bottom of your paper, and it's called the equator. E-A-T-O-R. So the bottom of your paper is technically the equator in this map. And there you go. You have the map of North America.